Hi, my name is Thomas do Prado Coelho, and today I'm going to present my Master Thesis work. It's about motivations of immigrants to volunteer in sports organizations here in Norway. I study case in Møre, Romsdal area. To start, give a little bit of context what I did during those semesters in my master classes. I saw a lot whenever the sports was set the contest in Norway, in the Norwegian contest. Volunteerism seems a very relevant tool to the sports organizations to use that. So I started to see that as a core of the sports in the area. And I also wanted to focus on the immigrant motivations to do that, this volunteerism during this case. So that's, I have a workshop with the NIF. I don't know, probably you remember that. And we talk about the problem of, since COVID, many of the volunteers wasn't coming back. And I took myself, as an immigrant, I choose this niche to focus on it. Seeing also the immigrant population is growing in Norway at the same time. So I kind of mixed those two subjects together. The objective of the master thesis was to explore the motivations behind the immigrants, what motivated us to do this kind of work. Is that hard, or is in it? And with that information, probably to provide practical recommendations to the sports organizations so they can bring more immigrants and hold them longer in the institutions or clubs. The research question was that one. I actually in the beginning have a little bit more, few others, but I ended up with one, only this one. What motivates immigrants to volunteer in Norwegian sports organizations? I believe I could answer that, but we'll see later. During my literature review, I read multiple articles, and I divided in 3 different parts my literature review. First, focusing on volunteerism and how is relevant to society in general, and relevant to sports and community building. Also the economic and the social benefits it brings. I also approach that more locally, which is a dugnad. Dugnad in Norway, it's a Norwegian word, you know. Are you Norwegian, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you know that word pretty well. But for some of us coming from outside, it can be not that common. It is a bit bigger than it looks, this word. So I approach a bit that in my literature review as well, the differences in the community and social integration. And to last, I approach also the changing demographics. So I show some numbers and statistics showing that the immigrants are a growing population in Norway. And that's why sports organizations should look with a special eye to them, so to us, so to them. It's a very promising force of work. They also bringing demand to the clubs, so they should bring some volunteer work aside of that. So the challenge in opportunities and the increasing population. For the theoretical framework, that was a bit complex process. During my literature review, I was reading a lot of papers about motivations, volunteerism in sports organizations, immigrants, volunteerism, and multiple theories was being presented during those studies. I have a list after I can show you with all the ones I took it. And then I started to set like hypotheses, so take it like cases. Let's think about Piotr from Poland. He's not coming here because of any war. He's not coming, he's really willing to make money. Norway economy is pretty good, so he wants to make money. Is he willing to do some volunteer work or not? So I was taking different cases, or maybe someone from Ukraine coming in a war, or maybe someone who fall in love, like me, and suddenly married a Norwegian woman, is here. Is he willing to do some volunteer work or not? So some of the theories would apply for specific cases, but as I took the immigrants as a whole group, so depending on their visa status, it was a bit more complicated. So I believe I was trying to do some storytelling, connecting some theories together, But suddenly, I think this one it feels me the strongest and better storytelling or theories together combined. It was very hard to find them, but in the end, I feel like, okay, I think that makes sense a lot for some of the groups, and together we can get a good view of what can motivate it. So the self-determination theory is mostly about intrinsic motivations and divided in those three topics: autonomy, competence, and relentlessness. Social exchange theory, it's about reciprocal benefits of volunteering. So they are willing to volunteer, but they want something back. And the social capital theory is pretty much what they wanted back. It's to build social networks and trust and development also in language. But this we're gonna go further in the findings. My research methods, I ended up with a qualitative approach. As I told you before, I have a bigger project in the beginning, and it was shrinking, getting smaller. It was semi-structured interviews. I got in the end 8 participants from diverse backgrounds. The age was between 27 and 65 years old. And the data analysis, I chose the thematic analysis. So while I was reading the transcript, I was trying to get patterns. They have similarities in the answers, and combining different groups, and was selecting by that. Some findings about the motivations. Most of the participants, the 8 participants, they have altruistic desires, so they wanted to help community, bring it back to community. They were willing to help. Also, we saw a lot of them mention the personal growth, so they wanted to learn and improve their language. They wanted to skill development, maybe in the area, if it was sales, if it were in the kiosk or things like that, and personal fulfillment. And also was a very, very important topic in the findings about the cultural integration. So they wanted to know a bit more about Dugna. They want to know about how things, how business are driven in Norway and things like that. So they was very, very interesting interviews. I did 3 different groups, and got those findings about the motivations. They also presented some challenge during these interviews, and some challenge the participants, the immigrants, presented as volunteer. It was the lack of structure in supporting volunteer roles. So some of them was feeling really thrown in the club or in the place and say, go and do your work, click a till, and that's it. Just be there and do your best. Some of them feel like volunteer burnout. That was mentioned a few times during the interview also. So overcommitment and lack of recognition. So some of the clubs would overcharge them or will see them willing to help and maybe charge them a bit too much, put too much work or maybe too much people to them to attend or things like that. And as a personal barriers, the language and the cultural difference. I think mostly the language, the cultural difference, of course, it can be a challenge, but I think the language was the biggest. Some of them, we could find a gap between the communication between the clubs and the immigrants. So some of them didn't know the opportunities they have, didn't know the clubs needed that much the volunteerism in there. So it was a bit of gap of communication between those players. Some recommendations after the findings we could provide to the clubs and to sports clubs or sports organizations. I think if they provided the language support and cultural education, so the communication in the clubs, maybe in the social media, if they could translate that, having the official paper in Norwegian, of course, following the cultural thing, but having on the side that an English translation, or maybe right now we have a lot of Ukrainian, so maybe a Ukrainian translation, so people could understand what they wanted in the event, what's gonna happen, the activities is gonna play, the times and things, but they also could see both and get some words and train the language through that, through the communication. I think if they created a better structured volunteer programs with clear roles, so be a bit more open and bring them to maybe to the planning schedule and help them to understand what they have to do and what's that so important, be a bit more clear with them. And they recognize and rewards volunteer contributions. That's it's not a new thing. It's found by others in academics. Ostelunde was the one who really went into it. But it's very important to get some clothing, maybe a proper clothing to the event if you're gonna be outside in the rain or something like that, and to have some gear from the club, so it gives a better integration and feel of being part of the team. For the policymakers, to promote inclusive policies to support immigrants volunteerism through better communication, so it's pretty much help like that, but be more effective in this communication, see if the clubs are really talking with them, and use these some platforms which local communities are, like Voksenoplæring, these adult schools, or places like Join Us, or some institutions who have a lot of immigrants in it, so try to communicate with them and go through to get them. The policymakers could help with that. The conclusion, I think immigrant volunteerism offers mutual benefits for individuals and communities. It's still very important, and it's a strong working force. Addressing the challenge can enhance the volunteer retention and satisfaction. And I think in the end of the day, they really want to help, as I say, but they want something back. And I think those three theories I connected together, it really explains someone who's new in the land, they really need the social capital to get better integrated and to thrive in a better and a quicker way. And if they do that exchange in the clubs, while they're willing to help, I think it explains most of the visa types of immigrants coming in. We could get more immigrants in the clubs following that and giving social capital that in the end of the day. For the researcher, I think it's broader studies across different regions in demographics. Of course, I took it the Møre Romsdal, but basically everyone who I interview lives in Molde. So we could take that in a bigger scope. So interview maybe immigrants from Oslo. I know we have the immigrants all over Norway. Norway try to spread them all over. I saw statistics about the biggest name in Oslo, I think it was 2 years ago, was Mohammed. That's the most, the biggest, more kids getting this name, which is not a Norwegian name. And longitudinal studies and track change over time. We know also during the time it changed a lot. We get immigrants from Syria. When was they having a problem in Syria? There is now we have a problem in Ukraine, so there's a lot of Ukrainians coming in. So it changed over time the type of immigrants as well. So I think to track that it would be very interesting. And as I say, I believe immigrants have a very powerful tool to help the sports in general to thrive. I think that's it. Thank you for your attention. I hope I could clarify a little bit. I'm a bit nervous, but I think I did quite well. And now we have some time to questions and open floor to anything you guys want to know. I'm gonna